Phenomenal honor to be here. Thank you all. Thank you, Tracey Emin, one of the greatest artists alive, I think. I am the worst interviewer in the world. As you can imagine from my idiot Instagram, I don't really listen to people until I start to listen. So I'm going to say a few things about Tracey, and then hopefully we'll have a conversation. I met Tracey. We're really actually meeting for the very first time, I think. But we've met on and off. But I saw you in bed. I met you in bed the very first time. Then I fell in love with her work. She was underneath a blanket, and I think it was called a retrospective or something.
No, it was Hotel International, and it was like my CV. And it came about because Jay Joplin offered me a show, and all I used to do at that time was write. And I thought, oh, what can I do? How can I show him? How can I make some art? And I was in Geneva, and I bought a really big turquoise blue sheet, and I decided to sew my CV on this turquoise sheet. And this sheet suddenly then became a blanket made out of my old clothes and everything. This was in 1993. And then it became Hotel International. And then it became my blanket. And that's what came to New York with me.
And it was quite extraordinary. I remember it had your birth date on it, I believe. It had the word Margate on it, I believe. No?
Yeah, well, basically it had the names, the addresses of everywhere I'd sort of lived, and little things that I'd done. And it was because at that time I felt that my art career actually had no importance whatsoever. It was never going to have any importance. And I'd had a show at Jay's, and I called it my major retrospective because I thought it was the only exhibition I was ever going to have. And it was compiled of images of all the work I'd ever made, tiny little images printed on photographs and then made into badges and sewn onto the last piece of canvas I'd ever had to make a painting on. So I knew about all this sentimentality to do with it, but nobody else did. And then I had all my diaries that I showed, memorabilia, family things, and it was weird. It was in 1993. And at that time, people were becoming very cynical about art or making very cynical art. So nobody actually believed that all this stuff of mine was genuine. And I even showed my passport that ran out that night on the night of the opening on the 17th of November, 1993. And there was a picture of me looking incredibly sexy, sort of like a sort of Gertrude Richter sort of Bader-Meinhof type character in this passport photo. And everybody thought I'd actually got this passport, fabricated and made up the date and everything. Nobody actually realized that I was being really genuinely sincere about everything that I was doing. And that's because it really wasn't fashionable in 1993 to be sincere.
And that, I think, through, especially the United States of America, I know I sort of fell in love with you and the work as a kind of outsider artist, a visionary, an eccentric, but also an incredible accomplished artist who was writing, drawing. You had drawings in that first hotel show, and but then the reception of your work got thrown in, and we talked about this before, with something called YBA. Do you all know what that is? So it was a lot of shock your nana art, and ironies upon ironies upon ironies. And yet I saw somebody that was incredibly open, honest, vulnerable, which keeps happening in your work for decades. And then somehow you got lumped in with that, as all art movements are.
Well, I kind of didn't get lumped in exactly. A lot of those people at that time were my friends, and I was having a relationship with Carl Friedman. Jay Joplin, even though he's my gallerist, same age as me, is one of my best friends. And Jay showed a lot of the YBAs at the time. And also, me and Sarah Lucas had a shop together. I had a relationship, long-time relationship with Matt Collishaw. So even though my work wasn't part of all of that, I definitely was. And one thing that was really part of it was my personality, because I had a big personality and I liked to party. And the YBAs definitely liked to party. And unfortunately, that is internationally what we got a reputation for, not actually our work. So, you know, like when we went into town, we kind of really did make a mess of things. And at the moment on TV in Britain, there's just, well, you might have seen it, I don't know if you've seen it, but there's a three-part documentary series on sensation. And it's like the history of the 90s, early 80s, 90s, early 2000s, and the Sensation Show. And I watched this a couple of weeks ago with some international friends of mine in my house. We're sitting there watching it, watched the 3 episodes together. And afterwards, they said, well, what did you think of that? And I said, oh, fucking hell. I said, no wonder nobody took us seriously. It was just like, I just couldn't believe it. I just thinking, is this what we were promoting and selling out into the world? You know, I always get upset because I have 0 career in America, but then looking at what the perception of me in the 90s, I'm not surprised, you know. Oh look, here comes the party drunk girl in the cowboy boots, you know. It's like, and I think, unfortunately, it didn't matter how hard you actually worked in private, the public persona was a lot bigger, and especially for me, so.
It was astonishing. And what do you think, that's what I was trying to build up to, that happened, especially in the United States, with the reception of your work?
Well, there's 2 things, actually. I think because I drank so much as well, and America isn't, if you as far as drinking's concerned, if you drink, you do it in private. I do everything in the open. I hide nothing. So I had this sort of like, it looked like I didn't care less, it looked like I didn't give a fuck, and I'm quite mouthy and I had like an attitude. And, you know, like in LA, I almost get arrested just for walking down the road kind of thing. And I haven't got what it takes, this is really genuine and sincere, to be what it is to be a successful artist in America. I haven't got those kind of balls, and I don't want them. They're too macho, they're too big, they're too baggy. They drag on the floor when you walk, right? My balls are up here on my chest, close to my heart, you know? And there's just certain ways of being that I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't hack it. I couldn't do it. And I like, as things have turned out, I'm really happy with the way things have turned out. And I wasn't maybe sort of 5 or 6 years ago. I was kind of like upset about it all. And now I'm really sort of just quite content about my work, about the reception of it, how people perceive me, you know. And also, I'm sitting here saying, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the way that I behaved. I'm sorry that I didn't let you know how serious I was about art. I'm sorry that I looked, you know, irreverent, like I didn't care. I care more about art than anything in the whole world. And maybe it's because of that I was hiding it from everybody, because I was scared of being, you know, like, I was scared of being rejected. So I rejected all of you first, all of America first. I pushed you all away, it all away. And really, America, in terms of modern art and contemporary art, whether us little Brits like it or not, it is the epicenter of the world, you know, and it has been for the last 60 or 70 years. So if you fail within that arena, you really feel like you're a failure. And I've always said that I was like one of those pop stars, you know, that didn't make it across the pond. So
At the same time, you and that crew basically what I call de-islandized England and put it on the map. I mean, I think that at that time you had all of the YBA artists. Should we name some so you all know their names? Damien Hirst, Chris O'Feely got lumped into that. Everybody got put in. Peter Doig, Gillian Waring, Sarah Lucas, the Chapmans, we could go on. Frieze magazine started, and a little thing we like to call the Tate Gallery grew into this mega thing. And for whatever reasons, you guys changed the international map of what Great Britain was and made it part of the whole art world. Do you sense that back then?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, you know, historically, it will be on, you know, you've got these different movements with art. There will be this little blip in the 90s and the early 2000s, which was Britain. You know, you've got Paris back in, you know, 1910, or Vienna 1910 or whatever, and you can see, and there'll be this tiny blip for us. But what I'm interested in is not the blip. I'm interested in the mountain, Jerry, because that's where I'm going.
You are. Yeah. You are going to the mountain, and that's what I fell in love with your work, and then fell in love with it when I saw a painting in the early 2000s, and it was a painting of a woman, a figurative painting, and I felt like I was hearing thoughts I shouldn't hear about what women think, feel, go through. I'm seeing it much more in art these days, and I was astonished at it. And then I was shocked that the same artists, male artists that do that, were lauded, right, for their feelings, emotions, pains, struggles, solitudes. And yet I don't think any artist that's ever lived, possibly a famous artist, has ever gotten more negative criticism for doing the same thing.
Yeah, well, I think things have changed a lot for me now, thanks to the Me Too movement and people having much louder voices, you know, whether it's, it doesn't matter what the movement is, it's people actually being given a voice within society now, whereas 20 years ago, people didn't. And a lot of my work was not about me. It was about women like me. It was people of my class and background. It was people of mixed race like me. It was people who had suffered poverty as a child like me. It was people who had been raped like me. It was people who had had 2 abortions and one that went terribly, terribly wrong. It was people like me who had been sexually abused as a child. It was people like me who had been sexually, not abused, but I had loads of teenage sex when I was like a teenager, 13, 14, 15. And all of those people like me happened to be women. Mm-hmm. Not men, but women. And I was making work about this stuff, and they go, oh my God, she's making work about abortion again. She's moaning on about abortion. Oh God, she's going on about rape again. Yeah, too fucking right I'm going on about rape, because a girl shouldn't be raped when she's 13. Mm-hmm. And where I grew up, when you had sex against your will, when you were raped, you would go to school the next day and you'd go, oh, what's wrong with her? And they go, oh, she was broken into last night. That's how it was referred to. You didn't go to the police, you didn't complain, you didn't tell anyone. It was just a matter of course. That is what happened. So I made work about this. And you know what? People didn't like it that I made work about that. And because why would anyone admit that that happens? Because no one wants to admit that these things happen. Nobody wants to admit that an 8-year-old gets sexually abused either. Nobody wants to confront that. Nobody wants to think about those things. I make work about those things. I continue to make work about those things. The world is just catching up with me.
True. And one of the reasons I think the world is just catching up with you on this mountain is because you're not the only one thinking about it. Everyone else was thinking about it too. But it took this kind of radical vulnerability to sort of shatter that wall and make it okay. You just showed with Edvard Munch in 2020 at the Royal Academy.
Yeah, and the Munch Museum.
It's quite amazing because he painted women, believe it or not. I think you two share a great deep sympathy for women. And you want to talk about that a little?
What about my love for Munch?
Yeah, and how it might connect how you're women and his women.
Well, there's a New York art historian, and he was interviewing me for a catalogue, and he said to me, he was in my studio, and I was sort of like laid out on this sort of daybed, like with my hand like this, with my knee up like that, talking to him. And he said to me, you know, you're so obviously influenced by Matisses' cutouts. And I went, no, I'm not. He said, well, it's quite obvious you are. And I went, no, it's not obvious that I am. He said, no, all your figures are just like that, with the leg up and the arm back. And I laid there on this couch and I said, what, you mean like this? And I laid like a Matisse. I said, this is my body. This is me. Are you telling me that I'm influenced by Matisse because I lay like a Matisse figure? I said, are you telling me that I don't own and control my own body? So this is what's quite interesting about Munch. Munch put himself in the picture. Munch wasn't just painting women. Munch put his own emotions and his own guilt, his own failures, and his own admissions of everything into that work. He never made himself look like a hero. He never made himself look like some macho, pompous, apart from when he was doing paintings with naked men, incidentally.
Big, huge wangs he would put on them.
Giant, exactly. It's like, you know. And Munch really adored and loved women, but not as like a partner, and not as like, say, Picasso or other artists as a sort of like just a, you know, a muse or something. He liked them as a kind of emotional springboard. And he was really his own emotions were very similar to women's. He was very open about his jealousy, his fears, his guilt, his vanity, his fear of aging. And I think all of us, it's like looking in a mirror. And for me, Munch was so honest and so cool as an artist and radical. Imagine at that time, in say like 1890, he's using lime green, cerise pink. He's painting these sort of like opium crazed up images of the scream and everything. And he's really expressing his emotions at a time when men didn't express their emotions. No one expressed their emotions.
That's what I'm trying to get at, exactly like that.
Yeah, so I relate to that. So Munch is like my kindred spirit, and he's like the first Egon Schiele, Edvard Munch, Käthe Kollwitz, first artist that I really fell in love with. So, because previously to that, the first artist I was probably aware of, at school we had to do 2 living artists, and we had Roy Lichtenstein and Andy Warhol. So imagine that, they were alive when I was at school doing art when I was about 13 or something. And so that's what I thought art was, which was kind of cool in a way. But then when I discovered Egon Schiele and Edvard Munch, that was my art. They were my friends.
And to then turn back the clock to that moment, but furthermore, backwards, when do you think you knew you were an artist? Was there an event? Was there a thing? Because you seem really an artist to the core, sort of an unstoppable force of artists.
I've never done anything else, nothing at all. I had a couple of part-time jobs. I was a cloakroom attendant at Gaz's Rock and Blues when I was at Royal College of Art. And I always used to turn up late, and they used to say to me, "You're late." I'd say, "You're lucky," because I'm here. It's like, I was so broke in the 90s. To me, money never mattered. None of those things mattered. All that mattered to me was that I was an artist. So I never took any sort of part. I tell you what, I did have a job. I was a youth tutor for Southwark Council, teaching art to latchkey kids. That's the only thing I've ever done, which is still art. And I never wanted to do anything else. I left school at 13 with no qualifications. I got into my degree when I was 20, which is quite late, but I never looked back. I just loved every single moment of it. And I think because I didn't really go to school, and I'm not stupid, I just didn't learn anything academically. I had this big void in my mind, this big chasm of space that could just take in as much art as I wanted and as much visual interest as I needed. And then when I actually left art school, my MA from the Royal College of Art, I then went and did a 2-year part-time course in philosophy.
Wow.
So, and then I loved the philosophy. It was like I just loved it. It was just brilliant. It was like, because my brain hadn't been filled up with loads of shit from school, I had all this room to take in whatever I wanted.
And about your studio practice now, I follow you and love following you on Instagram, and I see you have a lot of different places that you built and that you work in a lot of space. I just posted today on Instagram where you jumped in. I talked about keeping work around a long time to see how it's doing, see which ones are misbehaving, which are naughty, which you were too comfortable with making, and then maybe having the inspiration and the nerve to change. What is your studio practice like around the room in your studio?
Well, I've got, as you said, I've got different studios. I've got a studio in London, my studio in Margate, and I've got a studio in France. But I haven't been to France for a long time because I've been so ill. But my studio in Margate is really big. It's about, I don't know, it's pretty big. It's not as big as this room. I can't really tell, but it's getting here, around this size. And I have these giant canvases all the way around, and it's really spacious and the most amazing light. And then my studio in London is much smaller, and it's this like sort of room that was built in about 1900, and it's got a skylight and everything. And one I've got loads of space in and loads of room to move and move the giant paintings, and the other one I don't have any room. And so I'm constricted and I'm open. But I still have do this terrible thing. I can do a really good painting and it's really perfect. And then I come in and look at it and go, or I go to bed and I think, oh, I've got to change that bit, I've got to change that bit. And I change it. And then once I start moving it around, I completely destroy it. And then I end up, as I said in your Instagram today, I'll paint over it as it's going out the door to be hung. And then Harry who works with me, when we're working in France together, I've got this tiny studio in France. When I used to drink a lot, Harry would be just sort of like maybe taking a photo of it because the painting's so good and it's so finished, and he'd just turn his back, and as he turned his back, I would have gone, just completely covered it. And it's this sort of thing. I can do like what I call a very good Tracey painting, and I know someone's going to want it and hang it on their wall. But I don't want it, and I don't want to hang it on my wall. No. I can do a really bad, crappy, shitty, crazy, mad Tracey painting, and no one will want it on their wall, but I want it because it's the most interesting thing that I've done for years, and it's made me think, and it's made me question everything. It's made something spark from my childhood, or it scared me. The other day I did a painting that scared me because there was these dead people in it. Me and Harry could see the dead people, and it was like, fucking hell, they've come back. You know, it's like, no. Yeah, and so I always say about painting, you don't go to a fortune teller to hear something you already know. You go to a fortune teller for them to tell you something you don't know. When I paint, I don't want to paint something I know. I want the painting to tell me something I don't know. And that's my criteria. That's what I go for.
And I think most artists in the room know these moments. There's the very famous example of Matisse finished the Red Studio, of course, and it was green. And it was a commissioned painting for the richest collector in Russia. And he lived with this painting, and while Harry was filming Henry Matisse, walking around the studio, out of nowhere, after he must have thought about it a long time because it was oil paint, he covered the whole thing in Venetian red and changed his own trajectory. So you are describing moments like that for yourself, at least.
Well, now, with painting, it's like I'm so serious about it. I'm sort of like one of those really almost boring people when I talk about it. I'm so passionate about it, and it's because the painting has become an entity. It's become like a sort of spirit that lives outside of me and joins me sometimes. And I don't care if any of you think that's crap or bullshit. It's not to me. It's a real thing. It's real. It's like this sort of energy, this ball of energy. And I've always been aware of it, even when I was young, very young, but I ignored it for as long as possible. And I think that's why I didn't paint for a long time, because I was scared of it and afraid of it. Now I'm not afraid of it, and I take it on, and I go into the studio, and sometimes it's like going into battle, and other times it's going like into a dance, but it's definitely like a meeting of something. And if the meeting doesn't happen, then I'm not interested. I'll walk away. It's like having a lover. If the lover's not interested, you're not going to hold on to skirt begging for it, are you? And it's the same with painting. I'm not going to hang on to in my studio going, oh, give me an idea, make me feel like an artist. No, I either am or I'm not. It's that simple. I'm not going to argue with it. It either takes me, whisks me up, makes me feel amazing, makes me feel alive. And to me, painting is like, I used to say sex was better. Not anymore.
Well, for the first 50,000 years of art, that's what art was. It was art was something that did something, made you pregnant, stopped you from getting pregnant, cast spells, killed people, protected armies, raised gods, that was destroyed. And then in the last 200 years, we've kind of lost touch with the nerve to be able to be that open that art could do something.
No, because in my studio, it's like it was the former of what you just said. It raises armies, it raises the dead. You know, like in my studio when I'm painting, it's like a whirlwind. It's like a. Should I tell him about the window?
Yeah, tell us about the window.
Okay. So Harry works in the studio with me. I have one person who works with me. Harry's not my assistant, he works with me. He's worked with me since he was 18. He knows more about my work than any living person. Harry and I work fantastically together in the studio, but because I've been so ill and so weak for a long time, I haven't been able to work up to par. This summer in Margate, I've been swimming every day in the sea against the tide for like 1 hour to build up my muscles so I could paint again and everything. So me and Harry are in the studio and it is such a good atmosphere. Leonard Cohen's singing away, the cats are walking around, and I've finished a really, really good painting. I've got 3 others on the go. Harry goes, it's very late, it's about 11:15. Harry goes and makes me a pot of tea. I'm sitting there drinking the tea, and he says to me, "Are you going to do any more?" And I said, "Yep." And I jumped up, and he had a big smile, and Harry had been mixing this amazing red colour for me, really fat, and we were going, my God, it's just like blood. My God, it looks just like blood. And I'd been painting with it. And also as I've been painting, I'd been sweeping, it's a really giant canvas, sweeping low on the ground. And as I was painting like this, I was thinking, this is amazing. It doesn't even feel like I ever had cancer. This feels like the first time, this feels so good. And I said to Harry, do you know what? It feels like I never had cancer. I feel so happy. And every time I say that, something terrible happens. No, it's not funny, because then the kittens, the cats, were crawling along the window, and because it's so hot, I'd opened up the windows, and on the other side of the studio, it's low to the street side, so I thought, oh shit, they'll jump out the window. So I closed the windows, and then it was really hot, so I said to Harry, oh, we have to open the windows. So Harry went and got the hook to unhook these top windows. Remember, we'd just been mixing up all this blood colour and everything and whatever. And as Harry unhooked the window, the whole crystal window came out like this and just fell and hit him on the head. And then there was just this blood just went everywhere, all over his head. And it was like a horror film. Wow. It was unbelievable. There was blood everywhere. And I thought Harry was going to die right in front of me. Anyway, he didn't. He's here. But my point here is the atmosphere in the studio. If you talk about waking up the army of the dead, you know, Beelzebub and all of that gang, everything was coming to fruition, coming up into the room. You could feel it, couldn't you, Harry? It was all happening in this room. And the fact that I turned around and smiled at him as he was mixing this red blood colour, and I said, I'm so happy. There you go. So I really...
It's what paintings do.
Yeah, no, I really do believe there's this sort of like energy, this sort of like psychic kind of strange energy. And also, I always paint on the full moon. So like a banshee, like a crazy banshee. And there must be women in the room that know what I'm talking about with the full moon. If you get your period on a full moon, you are the banshee.
See, everybody's doing this.
Yeah, and your energy, your psychic energy and your creative energy is like beyond. It's amazing. So I make the most of those moments. Yeah.
You've talked about your illness. I think in 2020, around the time of COVID, I remember hearing or seeing or reading that you were diagnosed with some cancer.
No, it wasn't. I'll tell you what it was. I remember
What the
exactly.
hell? I don't know.
I remember exactly what it was. You wrote about, so who had, you said something like on your Instagram, who woke up from COVID and felt like they'd experienced something completely different, something like that.
Sounds like me.
Yeah, and I said, yeah, well, I woke up with full-blown cancer.
That was it.
Yeah. He goes, what? Yeah.
That's an announcement. And when was that?
That was in 2020.
And then we started DMing like crazy, because even though you have this amazing dream life, it turns out that you're awake a lot during the middle of the night when the US is still awake. And so you want to take us through that, because you've been pretty public with it and stuff.
What, my cancer? Yeah, well, it's like, so it was lockdown, and I was on the roof of my house, my old house, and it was very Mary Poppins type of situation, and I was sitting in the eaves of the roof, and below me, the vicar lived below me, and the church was over here, and I was naked, and the vicar was having a tea party, and I was drinking champagne, and I thought this was very funny. So I stood up with my glass of champagne and said, "Hello, vicar," like this. And of course, he couldn't see me from here. And I thought this was so amusing. I thought it was so funny. And I sat down and I was looking at my phone and messages and everything. And the sun was out. It was like, and I was thinking, God, I've never been so happy. And then I went to the loo and there was blood everywhere. And also the other thing which was really strange, I was contemplating having some sort of sex. So I was going to my gynecologist to be checked out, because I was a woman well over her menopause, and I thought, I wonder what's happening, if I can still do it or anything. So I went to my gynecologist the next day and told her about the blood, and she checked me out, and she had a mask on because it was COVID, and she said, "What's that?" And I went, "Ah." And her face behind the mask, I said, "You tell me what it is." She went, "I don't know what it is." And I said, "Well, you're the gynecologist, what is it?" And her face was in so much like, I said, "God, you look." And she said, "Tracey, I don't know what this is." Anyway, a few hours later, I was in my studio, sitting there, and this is the truth as well. I was looking at this big red, strange painting for ages, and a phone rang. And it was her, and she said, "Are you there on your own or anything?" I said, "Oh yeah." She goes, I said, "It's not good news, is it?" She said, "No, it's not." And then I got another phone call, and then within 3 weeks, I was having my bladder removed, my urethra, my lymph nodes, which I spelt wrong, my lymph nodes, my half of my vagina, part of my bowel, and some other bits and pieces. And so that was that, all within 3 weeks. So I didn't really have time to, I only had 3 weeks to think about it all, but it was either do that, and the doctor, my surgeon, he says to me about me having to have my bladder removed. I said, "I don't want my bladder removed. I don't want my bladder removed." And I said, "Is there an alternative?" And he said, "Yes, there is." And I said, "I'll do it, whatever it is." He said, "You won't like it." I said, "I'm going to do it." He said, "It's death."
Doctors are great.
Yeah, he's very funny. He had a good sense of humour. And then when he said to me, "Look, these are the side effects. You're going to lose about 30 pounds. You're going to have part of your vagina removed, so your vagina is going to be really small." And I said to him, "Excuse me, are you saying these are bad side effects?" My friend who was with me, Cecily, she's going, no, it's not funny, it's not funny. And then my favourite thing, there had to be another surgeon that comes in to give me a second opinion by law. I have to have a second opinion. And so he goes, "Right, are you okay?" Ask me all the questions. I go, yeah. I mean, this is major surgery, right? Really big stuff. So I go, yeah. I'm fine, okay. He said, "Are you sure you've got no questions?" And I went, "Yeah, I have got one question." He goes, "What is it?" I said, "Can I get a dog?" And he said, "Pardon?" And I said, can I get a dog? And he said, why are you asking that? And I said, because I'd like to get a dog. And he said, why? And I said, just tell me, can I get one? And I said, I want to get a puppy, a King Charles Spaniel. He said, no, you can't get a puppy. And I said, oh, well, can I get an older dog? He said, no, you can't. I said, can I get a rescue dog? He said, no. I said, can I get a really, really old rescue dog? And he said, no. And then when he left, my surgeon said to me, you're so clever. And I said, there's a really good chance that I'm going to die. And he said, yep, there is. There's more chance of you dying than living. And because if they'd have said, yeah, of course you can get a dog, of course you can get a puppy, but they didn't. They said no. So I knew. So basically, I knew that I had probably had 6 months to live. So when you're faced with that, you all kind of fantasize about this. Ha, that will show them. Ha, he shouldn't have been bad to me, should he? You know, you have all this kind of stuff. But when you're really faced with it and you have to think, what are you going to do in the next 6 months? Life really changes dramatically. And apart from the vagina and the bladder business, which is a bit annoying, the cancer thing is one of the best things that's ever happened to me, because it was like the biggest kick up the backside that anybody can ever have. And I always think it must have been like, I'm not comparing myself to Warhol, but when Andy Warhol was shot, you know, afterwards he came out of hospital and there was no messing around after that. He got a desk, he got a suit, he cleaned his whole act, everything, you know, and he just become really so focused. And it's a bit like me since the cancer. It's just like I'm so focused now. I stopped drinking completely, and loads of things in my life are so different, you know. I don't try to cram 20 million things in a day. I do the one thing that I'm really looking forward to with who I want to do it with. Tonight is Jerry and all of you. So today I did nothing, just rested.
And my wife and I have been through cancer stuff, and this is stuff we talked about, of working through it, that work was really all there is, and you had shared that with me. Did you find that to be the case for you?
Sorry?
That you worked through cancer, no matter what, as much as you could, and...
Well, actually, I did. I worked right up until the surgery, and then after the surgery, it was impossible. I couldn't even pour a teapot. I couldn't carry anything. I couldn't walk. I was about 6 months in bed, really. And the other thing is I didn't tell anyone. People only knew about it.
Only on my Instagram.
Yeah, no, but no one, you picked up on it, but other people didn't. And only...
I read every fucking comment.
And when people found out was when I was doing my Munch show at the Royal Academy, and I was doing an interview with the Sunday Times, and the journalist came to see me, and she came to my house, and I was in bed, and she came upstairs and she said, like it was about midday or something, and I was in bed, and she said, oh, late night was it? And I said, no, cancer. And it was like a moment that I've always been waiting for, because everyone just presumes I've got a hangover or something, and I was like, yes, no, I haven't. And so this journalist then suddenly looked and went, oh my God. And so we talked about that, and then so when she wrote her supposed preview of my show with Munch, a lot of it was about, and I ended, you know, of course, I was front page and everything. Then I was all across the news. I was on the news at 10. I was on the world news, everything. And I was thinking, my God, imagine what would have happened if I died. Like, wow, I've just been ill and this is happening. So in Britain, which is, if anyone's British here, you know, in Britain, it's really weird. It's not even like I'm an artist. It's like I'm a sort of a mascot, like a national treasure of sorts. It's a really different situation to how it is in America. So it was like, you know, during COVID, the last thing they would want is for me to drop dead. But I think I was really lucky with the cancer, the fact that I had it during lockdown, because I didn't miss anything. And then the other thing is no one missed me, because everybody was missing each other. So in a way, it's like I could be really ill and nearly die in private and then come back to life in public. So...
At the same time, you unveiled a mind-boggling sculpture outside the Munch Museum recently called The Mother. And I actually think it's about the best permanent public sculpture made in this century. And it's an enormous female figure. And you want to take it from there?
Yeah, it's a 9 meter high bronze, and it's of my mum-ish. It's like everyone's mum. Anyway, so I got asked to, I didn't get asked, I got asked to present an idea for this competition, and I never enter competitions, but because it was in by the Edvard Munch Museum, I thought I'll be stupid if I don't do it. So I sent off this maquette of this mother figure that I'd made, and I got the commission to do it. And it's a 9 meter high sculpture. And
how big are meters for the Americans in the room?
27 feet.
How many?
30 feet.
1,000 feet.
Yeah. No, 30 feet high. And she's got really big, her legs are open, and there's a beautiful garden in between, and she's a really old figure of an old woman. And I wanted it because I wanted someone to take care of Munch. And also, when the big liners come in and ships on the field, the mother, you can see the mother from planes as well, when planes go over. And it's a very, very feminine thing. It's brutally feminine actually. So it's kind of a rare thing to have that. And there's really great, on my Instagram, there's really great footage of it being carried across the field and then put into place. It was spectacular actually. It's a pretty big deal for me.
It seemed very loving, very nurturing, very not terrifying, things that people wanted to write about it or mentioned. It's very embracing, like this great mother.
Yeah, well also it is a mother, and people that were nasty about it, well, because she doesn't look attractive and she's old. And I said, what, isn't your mum going to get old? Isn't your wife going to get old? Your sister, your lover, your daughter? Women get old. Everywhere you see, this is not some sort of feminist sort of rhetoric at the moment, but you see so many images of old men that we have to respect, the father figures of society, but you never see women, and you never see primal, the woman. And the thing about the mother is she is all female, all mother, an older mother, this woman that takes care of everybody and everything. And I thought that was kind of worthy of being a 9 meter, 30-foot high sculpture.
Amen. Before I open this up to questions, is there anything you said you wanted to ask me, anything, or not? Or is
No.
that being awful to ask? You emailed and said you're going to ask me something.
No, if I thought of something.
Oh,
but,
no, never mind
I
then.
can't. I'll ask you later. Yeah. So.
And how are women doing in the art world these days?
Well, I think women are doing a lot better than men, because as I've always said, men, I said this to my friend who's just sitting down there. Well, I didn't say it, I thought it. As men peak between the age of 40 and 50, and women peak between the age of 50 and 80. And men have one big giant ejaculation, and women come and come and come and come again. So this is why, if you're a female artist and you're doing okay at 50, you're going to be doing quite good at 60, fucking excellent at 70, and out of this world at 80 and 90. So when you've got... My first and best artist friend in New York was Louise Bourgeois, and there's only like about 60 years between us, or some 70 years between us. Louise was a big inspiration, because there she was, 97, still going for it, still cracking it out, still thinking. Last time I saw Louise, we sat and we looked through Jung's book of images, and we were discussing it and talking about it. She's still thinking, she's still analysing, still totally with it, still working. So if I can be like that at 97, I've only had just only halfway through my career. So some of the biggest mistakes I made was having retrospectives when I was too young. So, you know, I'm looking forward to having them later.
And I would like to tell every goddamn American museum, excuse me, there is a great subject here to do an extraordinary exhibition. You do not have to be afraid. It's only a great artist. So, unless there's other things you'd like to tell our audience, maybe we should let people ask questions. Somebody gave us free French fries up here if you want any. And somebody else gave us a painting that's down there. And is the microphone already in somebody's face? I was stalling. And one point about questions, people. Do not get up and make a goddamn statement. Especially men. No men can do that. And just ask a quick question and we'll give a quick answer. Who's got one? Good, go. Question.
What was your favorite memory at the shop with Sarah?
What was your favorite memory at the shop in around 93, 45 or something with Sarah Lucas, a great enabler? In the best sense, the best kind.
I think with Sarah, I think the best memory was closing the shop. And it was my birthday, and we sent out an invitation saying 30, just about old enough to do what she fucking likes, party. That was the title of it. And we said we wanted to go out like rock stars. And we had these two women from Zeiss Beer, and Zeiss Beer was champagne and cider together in a bottle, and they were from Essex, and they'd come with these sashes, and they'd come to sell their beer, but they ended up staying all night and selling our stuff from the shop, which was quite funny. And me and Sarah had the Zeiss Beer things on, and there was just the most fantastic party. Gilbert and George, Jay, like everybody came, and it was the end of the shop. And I think that was probably one of my best memories of the shop, the end of it, definitely.
Jay Jopling, the great British gallerist, is there. Do you have a question or a statement? No, ask a question. Just get up. You went to Eton. You can do this.
I think the best thing that you've said all night, Jerry, is that this artist, Tracey Emin, needs a museum show.
Do you know why they... And you've done a lot.
Say that, and that's not a question.
Can I say something about this, about the museum shows? So in 1995, I showed in this show called Brilliant at the Walker Art Centre, and I showed my tent. And when we were filling all the forms in about what did our work need, my tent, which was the names of everybody I'd ever slept with from 1963 to 1995, and it wasn't just sex, it was like my grandmother holding her hand listening to the radio, my fetuses, this, that. It was like a whole list of everyone I'd slept with, had sex with, slept with, the euphemism of sex, the whole thing. So it was a little igloo type tent with all this embroidery and a plique in. So they said, what did I need for my tent? I said, silence. I needed quiet and contemplation, that people go inside the tent and then they read it. And then when I go to Walker Arts Centre in Minneapolis, they stick my tent in the middle of the fucking motorway, right, with free sound things, people all walking past. It was hideous. And I said, I can't put my tent there. And I said to Rich Flood, there's no way I can do it. I'm not doing it. I'm not putting my tent there. I care too much about my work. So he said, well, where do you think you're going to put it? And I said, well, there's a big space up there. I want to put it up there. And Richard Flood said to me, you don't understand. This exhibition is like a house. It's like a home. He said, up there is the grand suite, the grand living room. There is the hearth, the kitchen. He said, and we think you'll be really good in the hallway where people come in.
I'm so
sorry. And I said, oh, you do you? And I got my tent like this, and I got it, and my tent was one of these tents that it could go boing, it sort of squeezed in, it was on these plastic things. And he said to me, where are you going, where are you going? And I left the building, and I pulled it down the escalator, and the tent went boing. And as I walked down the escalator like that, it just went poof behind me. He said, "Where are you going?" And I said, "To my hotel." He said, "You can't take that tent out of this building." I said, "Why not?" He said, "Because it's insured." And I went, "No, it's not, because I carried it here on the plane," which I had done. And the whole thing was just horrific. And then Richard Flood, in front of a lot of people, really shouted at me and made me feel really embarrassed. And his actual words were, "With your attitude, you'll never show in a museum in America again." And I said to him, "With your attitude, I don't fucking want to." And this is really, really interesting. Guess what? I haven't.
This man raised his hand to say one quick question, loud.
I've seen photographs of Margate and your other studios.
Oh.
You are obviously a prolific and very good builder and restoration person. How does that fit? How do those tasks fit into your life on a day-to-day basis?
And can you tell us about the school, the residency in Margate, which is extraordinary?
I'll talk about the property first. So when I was little, so my mum was a gypsy. My mum's family were all gypsies, and so we've always done seances and palm reading and fortune telling. We always go to fortune tellers and things. And my mum, when I was little, took me to a fortune teller, and the fortune teller said she was a psychometrist. And a psychometrist, you give them your ring or keys, and they tell you. And the psychometrist said that I'd be really well known and famous for what I did, and I'd be phenomenally wealthy. But what I was wealthy for, everybody would think that it's because of what I do, but it's not. It's because of property. When I die, it would be because of property. And at that time, I was about 8, and we were really, really poor. I mean, unbelievably poor. It just seemed crazy. But my mum always reminded me of this. And I've been homeless 3 times in my life. And when I say homeless, I mean twice with my family, my whole family homeless, without a roof over our heads, and once alone as an adult. And being homeless is, if anyone's been homeless here, I don't mean like you don't want to go back to your parents for the summer. I mean you don't have anywhere to go, and you don't know where you're going to sleep tonight, and you're destitute. I've been through that, and I've been through it as a child with my mum, and that is unbelievable, that feeling of, and so as an adult, one thing that's always scared me was being homeless. And so all the time with art, I saved money, and I bought my first house in 2000. At the same time that everybody was doing coke, I was paying my mortgage basically, and I just accumulated houses, property by being, I don't know, because, and also I'm like frugal, and I'm not gauche or flash or anything like that, and I'm just always saving and diligent, and I've somehow accumulated a massive like property portfolio because I love property, because I'm scared of being homeless, because I'm scared of my friends being homeless. I bought homes and houses for my friends too. It's not just me. I've helped people, different things. But now I'm really, really comfortable. I have everything that I need, but I still love property. So I've gone and bought a really big bathhouse, old bathhouse in Margate, and an old morgue. And I've turned it into artist studio complex and an art school, essentially, but it's Tracey Emin Artist Residency, tier. And applications have all gone in this month. We've had like nearly 1,000 applications for 15 places from people all over the world hoping to move to Margate. And the course is on you don't have to have any qualifications, but the course is of a postgraduate level. So you have to know about art, and you have to have a good practice already. And it's phenomenal, the amount of people who have applied and everything. And recently, last week at Christie's, they sold a paint, or 2 weeks ago, a painting of mine, and it raised 2.3 million. And every single penny is going towards the school and to the students and everything. And can I just say, you know, I love property and I love art. So you know, I'd like to own a Munch, but I'd much rather give lots of artists the chance and facility and the chance to make art and become artists and be more confident within their own practice, rather than me own more things. I don't need any more things. I've got too much.
And do you have teachers there, you know, like that? How does that work?
Well, you're going to do a Zoom.
I'm in.
Yeah, but I think, no, wait.
And my wife, Roberta Smith, we're coming.
Yeah, we have the most phenomenal amount of people who have said that they're going to come and teach. It's so brilliant. And this is, the payment for teaching is, we pay all your expenses. So if Jerry and Roberta come over, we pay all their expenses, but they don't get paid for teaching. What they get paid for is a book, a paperback, and inside that paperback, I'll do a watercolour. So Jerry could get Crime and Punishment, Dostoevsky, and I'll do the watercolour. That's his payment. If he wants to tear the watercolour out, frame it, sell it, up to him. Tear it out, frame it, put it on the wall, up to him. He doesn't like my work really, but really likes me. He can just put the book on a shelf, you know? And if he really likes me and really likes teaching, he can come again and again and again, and then get a whole shelf, a whole library. And inside every single book, there'll be an artwork by me. So, and the reason why I'm doing that is I'm not trying to work against the Union of Teachers or anything, but I want the people who teach to do it because they want to give their knowledge and information freely. I don't want it to be in exchange for money. I want them to do it for the experience and the enjoyment of coming to Margate and teaching and facilitating and helping, because I'm not being paid, nobody's being paid. It's about giving and about like all my information, everything I know. I don't want to die with it. I don't. I want to share it. And I've got a time limit as well. So I have to do this fast and quick.
And it's great to see this generation of artists starting to give back. We skipped a couple of generations where artists used to give back, and it's happening much, much more. I saw this one woman, one question.
I was going to say statement, but I am a rule follower. So
Good. Me too.
I would love to know your current inspiration.
Current what?
Inspiration.
Your current inspiration.
My current inspiration? I don't, no, not my cats, no. My cats paint a lot with me. If anyone's seen on Instagram, my cats, I recently just had a painting at Frieze, and there's paw marks all over the painting. It's like, oh, there's some marks on it. Should we get, no, leave the paw marks. So my inspiration is my emotional feelings. So it's a cathartic response to how I feel and how I deal with things, definitely. And I'd be lying if I'd like to be really cool, but it's not. I wake up angry, I'll do angry painting. I wake up in love, I'll do a painting about love. I express myself through my work. So it's my emotions and my vulnerability. It still channels through my work. So, so this is quite good though. I'm always really lonely in New York, right? I have the most terrible time here. I'm never in New York without crying, ever, always in tears, right from the very beginning. 30 years of coming to New York, I've never stopped crying since I've been here. And I have an apartment in New York, and it's got a really brilliant sort of Edward Hopper sort of windows, views. And this view is really amazing and really beautiful. But while I was in my apartment this time, I thought I really should do some work about this view to loneliness and how I'm really feeling now, the difference. I don't know why, but I'm not feeling lonely, right? Don't know why. Maybe I'm in a room full of people, but who knows? But the idea of the city and being alone in the city, whereas when I'm in nature and alone, I feel fantastic. I feel like a giant. You drop me in the ocean and I swim. You put me in a forest and I walk. You put me in the city and I just feel so alone. So this is something which I want to work with and think about and wonder why. So, and I think being a woman, I'm nearly 60. I'm alone. I have no children. I have no family of my own or anything like this. It's a different way of living and experience in life. And as I get older, I realise it's more complicated for myself. So that is an interesting thing to do with this view, looking out the window. Before I've always done looking in. now I want to do looking out. So.
One more. I saw this woman right there, a question and loud enough so folks can hear.
I'm an architecture student here in New York, and I was just wondering, what is your perspective of architecture?
Of architecture.
On architecture in general, or I didn't hear you.
Of architecture generally?
Yeah, okay,
Architecture, what is your impression?
well, my friend Celeste Chipperfield is sitting in the front row, and I'm very good friends with her father, David Chipperfield. If I had a daughter and I could wish for her to have a profession, it would be an architect. If I'd have been academic and academically brainy, I would have liked to have been an architect. I would have loved to design beautiful staircases. I would love to design towers and bridges. I would love to design bridges that spanned halfway across the ocean. I would have liked to have made beautiful tunnels. I would like to have made a world an easier, better place to view from, stand from, be. And I love buildings, I love architecture. I spend a lot of time with, it sounds almost like, has anyone read Sylvia Plath's diary, right? Okay, so you read the bell jar, then you read her diaries, and it's, oh mummy, I bought some Danvers tablecloths and I thought they were awfully nice. And you go, no, you're a hardcore suicidal person. What are you talking about? And so it's like a bit like with me, you get me talking about like, you know, interior design, furniture, this, that, whatever. I love architecture, I love interiors, I love nest building, I love homes, I love properties, I love brick walls, I love, and as Jerry said, I'm a builder. I am a master builder, and I absolutely love everything about it. So there you go. I have my favourite architects, my favourite buildings, my favourite bridges, and I can bore people with it. So there you are.
I don't know. Here's the bosses. What do we do now, boss?
I'm going to say thank you very much.
Look, she's had her hand up the whole time.
If Tracy picks somebody,
Yeah.
we're going. And then we can do selfies later, but just don't touch us, okay? With the COVID thing. A little clammy. Okay.
Tracy, thank you for your sincerity and your courage and your wisdom. You mentioned the mountain. You don't want to talk about the blip. You're focused on the mountain. What does the peak of the mountain look like to you? And what is the course to chart to get there in your eyes?
Well, when I was 13, I was a really good cross-country runner. So I could easily run 5 miles, 4 miles. I could just run in any weather, hot, cold, or whatever. And then when we got back to the school gates, you had to sprint around the school field twice, and I could just run really fast at the end. And I'd always come in with a really good time. And I see my art career, my life a lot like that. I think that I've just been slowly jogging along like that. And now I'm coming to the end, and I'm coming to the school gates, and now I've got to really sprint and go really hard. So that last bit of the ascent on the mountain, I'm just looking forward to being able to just fly off at the end, because I'm going to be really knackered. But I'm so excited about what I've got ahead of me and where I'm going and how the view is going to be. And I never thought I was going to feel like that, not because I nearly died, but because I wanted to die. And now I don't. And that's one brilliant thing. When you've been really seriously ill or you've had cancer like that, and you come out the other side, you really don't fuck around anymore, ever. So there you are.
I think New York loves you. Yes. I wanted to say, first of all, when we organized this, I started getting thousands of emails from people who couldn't be here. So, and they kept saying, can you stream it? Can you record it? Whatever. So I want to thank Isabella Dubchik and her Clique, which is an amazing artist platform.
Yeah, thank you.
It will be on YouTube and available and everything, thanks to you. We don't usually have that, professional ability, so it's great. And the other thing that was so funny is we really had to convince Dr. Saltz to do this because he was so kind of, stage fright, and he said he was the worst interviewer and he talked too much and it would never happen and he couldn't do it right. But we kept asking him and asking him and asking him, and we had to have Tracey come up with a whole list of questions that she was going to ask.
But I didn't ask them.
Yeah. And so he, I think he's a natural, actually. I think he's
Brilliant.
What an incredible subject, conversational partner, and I mean, you're just a spectacular person and artist, and I just can't think of probably one of the best nights we've had at the school ever. So thank you both. Thank you.
Thank you.